Hey, yo, Pro Wrestling Podcast listeners, welcome to the show where we don't sing it, we bring it. Help us out and click subscribe to show your support. Are you sick and tired of dropping $60 to $100 for the latest and greatest wrestling video game every single year? Stop immediately. Go to Wrestler Unstoppable, available exclusively through Facebook. Create a wrestler, sign contracts, get involved in storylines, headline pay-per-views, even build your own corporation from the ground up, all included in Wrestler Unstoppable, available now to all Facebook users totally free. If you want to become a member of the Pro Wrestling Podcast family, you want your names in the shout-outs like our buddy John down in Texas, well, then you got to hop over to our Patreon page, patreon.com/Pro Wrestling Podcast. Sign up today. We have loyalty rewards. If you're a $15 a month contributor, we'll let you host a live episode with myself. $7.50 a month contributors, you get entered into a drawing to do the same thing. Hello, everybody. Welcome to this episode of the Pro Wrestling Podcast. If you've got questions, comments, things you just want us to get to in a future episode, give us a shout at the Pro Wrestling Sound Off line at 267-642-1160. Questions, comments, concerns, some topic that you've never heard before that you want to hear about. If there's something you want us to cover, if there's an episode of a show that you want us to take a look at and do a review of, whatever it is, give us a shout on the Sound Off line and we'll try to get to that in a future show. Don't forget to head over to our homepage, ProWrestling.com, where we have our whole collection of all of our episodes, our sponsors, our previous interview series, things of that nature, all sorts of stuff there for the fans of the Pro Wrestling Podcast. Hello, everybody. This show, we've got a lot of things. We're going to bounce all over the place quite a bit here. We're going to start with the plans for WWE's next Saudi Arabia show. We have Crown Jewel coming up very soon, but we always look ahead to the next show, and the next show is going to be, it was originally planned for February, and that's usually the month that we see the Elimination Chamber, but that is not going to be the case in 2023. It turns out instead they're going to move the next Saudi Arabia show to the post-WrestleMania, the May show, which is interesting because now you can see that Toronto, Canada is going to host the Elimination Chamber, which is great for Toronto. I have no problem with that. But it does set up a situation where there's a large gap in the premium live events. I'm still trying to get used to that terminology, premium live events instead of pay-per-views. And I know that we're doing that because of the WWE Network, and I get all of that. I really do. But it doesn't have a natural flow yet to it. But so it'll be interesting to see how WWE plays this out with the Saudi Arabia show moving. It's not the only movement they've done this week. Day one, the pay-per-view was supposed to take place January 1st, has been canceled, at least for now. And there's nothing on the schedule to replace it, which leaves us this really awkward gap in the pay-per-views for WWE. There's almost a 2-month period when you go from the Survivor Series all the way to the Royal Rumble. You know they've got to put something in there. I understand they're trying to give some great holiday hours to the talent and give them some downtime. I think that's a great idea. But you still have to have something in that almost 60-day window between pay-per-views or premium live events that for the fans to look at. And one of the ones, if you're not going to get a WWE event that you can look at, is New Japan Pro Wrestling's WrestleKingdom 17. And what I find interesting, there's an article out where there's a thing called Road to WrestleKingdom 17, which Fightful Select has been talking about. New Japan Pro Wrestling officials have purportedly had their plans in place for WrestleKingdom set all the way back in August. And what I'm curious about with that is we've already heard, with the return of the OC, Gallows and Anderson coming back to WWE, Carl Anderson being the never openweight champion currently, and I know there's controversy around that, whether he's going to show up for the show that's double booked the same day as Crown Jewel or not, and all that. But you know that the OC had to have been factored into the WrestleKingdom plans, and now with them coming back to WWE, I'm curious to see if WWE allows them to fulfill those dates. I actually hope they do, because it would be a gateway, a doorway into an opportunity for a working relationship between WWE and New Japan. I get it, New Japan doing Forbidden Door with AEW is exciting for fans who want to see some of those dream matchups we've never seen. But I have not been quiet about the fact on this show in the past that I'd love to see matches like Seth Rollins versus Kazuchika Okada or Tetsuya Naito come in and take on somebody like a Ricochet or something like that, somebody who's can really go in the ring. And even though they've wrestled before, seeing something like an AJ Styles versus Hiroshi Tanahashi, a lot of American fans haven't seen that because there's not a huge New Japan Pro Wrestling TV viewership audience. Comparatively speaking, to WWE. So I think some of those dream matches would be incredible whether it's at WrestleKingdom, in WWE, and if there's a working relationship, we can make that happen. Again, I'm not dumping on AEW's Forbidden Door. I think some of those matches were incredibly entertaining, especially with Orange Cassidy. I think there's a lot of opportunity there as well, but in 2022, and with Triple H in charge of WWE, I hope that everybody is starting to see where there's really an opportunity in co-promoting. Even a smaller company like GCW that recently saw Jon Moxley lose their world championship to Nick Gage because Moxley signed an exclusive contract extension with AEW. Now they're looking to make a deal with WWE. They've already joked about having Omos come in and perform and whatnot. If WWE is open to those types of partnerships, why not New Japan, the second biggest company in the world, and certainly in terms of revenue, but also potentially in terms of viewership. They have huge support over in Japan. So I would love to see that come together, and I think the Carl Anderson situation, as silly as that may sound, may have a lot to do with how far that relationship goes. But in the meantime, at least for now, it sounds like all the plans are in place for WrestleKingdom 17. We know that the World Championship will be defended. Jay White's going to defend against Okada. We know that Taiji Ishimori is going to defend against Hiromu Takahashi. El Desperado and Master Wato in a four-way for the Junior Heavyweight Championship. And we know that they're going to have the finals of the New Japan Pro Wrestling World Television Championship take place at the show as well. We're not sure who's going to be in that match yet because the tournament is ongoing. I know that there are talents like Dave Finlay, Zack Sabre Jr., Evil, Yoshihashi, Kenta, Sonata. They've all made it to the quarterfinals, so we really have no idea who's going to be the first championship holder for that new championship. And I'm sure they're going to stack the card with a whole lot of other incredible matches, so we'll have to keep our eyes on that. Moving along, Britt Baker in the news, talking about things that she thinks are like toxic traits in the AEW locker room. And I found it just absolutely incredible. She was on the Swerve City podcast, and when they spoke to her, she said, what's so toxic is when somebody thinks they're bigger than the company, or that the company needs them. There's literally no one in AEW that they need other than Tony Khan to survive. Everybody can be replaced. And I love that she came out and said that. It really puts her in a position of a locker room leader, which I don't care what anybody says. Male, female is irrelevant to me in 2022. I think her words speak volumes about what's been going on for the last year and a half or so at AEW. I think perhaps Kenny and the Young Bucks maybe got a little bit too big for their britches. I think also possibly more likely CM Punk grew tired of a style of wrestling that was not necessarily custom fit for him, and I think he maybe thought he was a bigger draw than he was. I think some of the talent in AEW probably expected him to be a bigger draw than he turned out to be. When their viewership, Eric Bischoff talks about it on the 83 Weeks podcast all the time and has been very critical of on the bottom line for AEW. And I know Tony Khan comes out and defends them all the time, highest grossing shows and records and all that kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, week in and week out, when you're still hitting 1 to 1.1 million viewers on a good week, it's really not a sizable change from the million viewers you had the year before he got there in your post All Out show. So it'll be curious to see how her words may be received in the locker room. I saw that Wardlow did an interview where he also was talking about this great harmonious perspective, so to speak, in the locker room ever since all the craziness went down, how they've gotten back to like that real low-key, all on the same page feel like they had during the pandemic. I hope that's the case, but it also makes me wonder what's going on with Punk, the Bucks, Kenny Omega. You know darn well that three of the four, we'll say Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks, would be welcomed with open arms into WWE. I think there's no doubt about that. I don't know what the roles would be in WWE, but I'm sure they would bring them in. The real question mark, and the one that has been on the minds of people all week, has been about whether or not CM Punk would be able to come back to WWE. There's reports going on all week about Triple H being open to Punk returning if the situation was right, if the creative was right or whatever. And then there's other people saying that people close to Triple H feel strongly that it would be a bad move. I don't know where I come in. I know Booker T was on this week, was on his Hall of Fame podcast, and his opinion was, yes, there's a chance, but he doesn't think it's a big chance. That they see CM Punk back in WWE. He actually said, I don't think CM Punk wants to go to WWE. CM Punk has made it perfectly clear ever since he's shown up in AEW what he feels, what he thinks about WWE and everything in it. So, and I don't think he's wrong with that. I think Booker T is very accurate in that statement. But think about the the viewership if he did. I get it. The AEW thing was huge. I think it's one of those crowning moments, one of the most exciting entrances I've ever seen as a fan in my life. That being said, it was seen by 1.3 or something like that million people. CM Punk returning to WWE would immediately pop 2 to 2.5 million people because they have a bigger viewing audience to begin with, and more people are familiar with WWE than AEW to begin with. So I think Triple H is all about his legacy at this point already, trying to show people that there's real positive things to look at in the post Vince McMahon era, and if CM Punk is a part of that solution, all the power to him. Somebody who may not be coming back to WWE anytime soon, there was a conversation with Kofi Kingston. Kofi Kingston was talking about his team, a dream team for War Games on NBC Sports Boston. And he mentioned several people. He mentioned Bray Wyatt and Braun Strowman and Carmelo Hayes and Trick Williams, all for different reasons. But he mentioned Randy Orton, but he didn't know if Randy's coming back. And that's a little scary to hear a talent say something like that, especially since this is a guy who a few days earlier literally talking about Big E like he's going to somehow find a way back also. So it's a little concerning that he feels the way he feels about Randy Orton. I hope he makes it back, but we'll just have to wait and see. It sounds like the injury to Orton might have been a lot more serious than people thought. Speaking of serious injuries, Buff Bagwell, serious problems with his legs. He was in an August 2020 car accident. And it's been a long time, but apparently there are a lot of issues, a lot of damage. He was on the Insight with Chris Van Vliet show, and they talked about it. His quote was, "The actual injury is my patella tendon exploded. It's not there. So they cut you down to your calf. They bring a piece of your calf muscle to your knee, and they rebuild your patella tendon. It's called," and I can't pronounce the word, gastrocnemius flap. And he said, well, as I went to the doctor that day, the flap isn't even there anymore. Now there's all kind of stuff, chips and arthritis, all kind of stuff going on, and it's bad news, he continued. Amputation is on the table. It's on the table. Not that they want to do that, but it's on the table. That's scary that this motorcycle thing from over 2 years ago could end up resulting in him losing his leg. Obviously, it would probably end his wrestling career. Not that he has much of a career left, considering his age and his reputation in the industry. But, there's a lot of these guys who, from yesteryear who still make appearances on the indies. I think it would limit his ability to do that. So I hope, sending positive vibes to Buff Bagwell, who it seems has been trying to get his life together with DDP and whatnot. But we'll have to see how that turns out. And the last bit of news, the last tidbit for the night, Tessa Blanchard, who was doing an interview with Sportskeeda, was talking about, being away from wrestling. And one of the things she said was, right now I'm in school, which, by the way, she's at the University of Texas, San Antonio. And she said, which is like my main focus, she noted. I try to do one to two of these wrestling get-togethers or matches once a month. Honestly, not too much more than that at the moment. She's trying to earn a degree in international affairs. She described it as lots of history, politics, and global arenas. But it'll be interesting. She says, I don't want to compromise my happiness for anything. Not money, not popularity, not followers, not for any of that. And that's a great quote because she's got a reputation for being a little bit of a hothead in the locker room. She's been accused of bullying other talent, making racial slurs and things like that. She ended up vacating the Impact World Championship in summer 2020 and then kind of disappeared for the most part. She came back for a WOW show. That had a falling out. That didn't work out. She came back for Warrior Wrestling, dropped her championship to Kylie Ray at that show. She really hasn't been a main focus of the wrestling world, despite the fact that she may be the most talented female wrestler out there. But definitely a situation to monitor. I think she could do a lot of things for WWE or AEW or Impact or anybody for that matter. But it doesn't sound like that's her priority right now. That's all the time we have for this episode. Check back with us next episode. We run down the latest wrestling news and rumors. Special thanks, as always, goes out to bensound.com and purpleplanet.com who produce all the music and sound effects we use in our shows. Today's show is sponsored in part by Beazle Games. Bringing a new friend to family game night is easy with sketchy people. Showcase your artistic side in this game from Beazle Games by going to frowrestling.com and clicking the icon in the middle of the screen to pick up your copy today. If you're looking for your next career move, maybe you're looking at college, university life, you're not sure what you want to do, go to our sister website at frolifeplanning.com for all your higher education needs, as Fro Life Educational Planning is for today, for tomorrow, and for life with Fro Life. I'm Fred Froelich, better known as Dr. Fro. Thank you for taking a few moments with us tonight. Take care, and we'll see you in our next episode.